today's agenda. As we continue in this virtual meeting format, we will begin once again by taking all public comment for committee and plenary at the beginning of our open session. At this time, I would like to ask Ms. Kiss to please call the speakers who have requested to provide public comment. I note that each speaker will have 1 minute for their comments. Ms. Kiss?
Thank you and good morning. So we have a lengthy list of speakers that we will work to get through to everyone's public comment this morning. Again, each speaker will have 1 minute. I'll ask to unmute you and begin your comments. Our first speaker is Lisa Swartz. Lisa, you have been unmuted and you can begin.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Lisa Swartz from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I am in the new coalition Divest the CSU, recommending and requesting for the board to be climate leaders and pragmatic decision makers by resolving that every campus endowment divest from fossil fuels and reinvest in more promising opportunities. We will not be alone. Almost 200 educational institutions like ours have divested from fossil fuels, including every campus of the University of California. And interestingly, the UC cited only financial pragmatism, not climate change, as the rationale for doing so. In the past 6 years, over 200 US oil and gas producers have filed for bankruptcy. I ask, how is this a safe investment? We believe fossil fuel divestment can be a massive achievement for the board, and we can stand together on the right side of history. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Angel Rivera. Angel, you have been unmuted and you can begin your comments. Angel, if you can accept the unmute request and begin your comments.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead, Angel.
Oh, okay, sorry. One second.
Please begin.
Okay. Hi, so my name is Angel Rivera. I'm from USAS, and I'm an incoming Fresno State student, and I'm here to state my lowest solidarity with the lowest paid workers across the CSU facing layoffs. So workers have been being laid off, and the CSU has threatened students with a potential tuition increase. And now we're facing austerity across the CSUs during a global pandemic. CSU leadership is not putting students first during the most difficult time in our lives. Cutting programs that we as students benefit from while also laying off CSU workers during the pandemic is just disgusting. We paid thousands of dollars to attend college. We expect the executives to save us, not your pockets. We will continue to speak out and let everyone know that CSU leadership is mistreating its students and workers. Rescind the layoffs and stop the austerity at CSU. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Samantha Gonzalez. Samantha, if you can please accept the unmute request and begin your comments.
Hi, my name is Samantha. I'm a USAS student and an incoming student at Fresno State. I'm here to state my solidarity with the lowest paid workers across the CSU facing layoffs. Students and workers are first. As an incoming student at a CSU, I've been speaking at the Board of Trustee meetings for the last 6 months in support of CSU workers. Now, I hear that at the last trustee meeting, CSU leadership said that they were preparing the tuition item in the event the state budget had further cuts for CSU. With the proposed budget increases and more stimulus funding, we students and workers do not want to continue bearing the burden of cuts. We keep the CSU running, not the trustees or senior managers, many of whom are receiving pay raises, even as the CSU talks of increasing tuition and has laid off its lower paid staff. Consider cutting your executive paychecks instead of perpetrating hardships on students and workers. Rescind the layoffs and stop the austerity, CSU.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alyssa Smith. Alyssa, if you can accept the unmute request and begin your comments.
Hi, my name is Alyssa. I'm a USAW student and an incoming student at Fresno State, and I'm here to say my solidarity with the lowest paid workers across the CSU facing layoffs. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we as United Students Against Sweatshops have been speaking in support of the hundreds of workers threatened with layoffs at CSU Fullerton, Monterey Bay, Fresno State, SF State, Sonoma State, and Northridge. These are the skilled trades, service, and other essential workers who risk their health to continue supporting the CSU through this pandemic. Students and workers are always the ones to suffer either increases in tuition or layoffs respectively because of the executive making decisions that put themselves first and not the broader CSU community. We send the layoffs and stop the austerity, CSUs. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Camila Rivera. Camila, if you can please unmute and begin your comments.
Hi, my name is Camila Rivera, and I am a USAS student and an incoming student at Fresno State. And I'm here to state my solidarity with the lowest paid workers across the CSUs facing layoffs. It is disappointing to hear that the CSU is in line to receive more than $800 million in additional federal stimulus, an amount significantly greater than what it got from the last stimulus bill, and still refuses to save workers from being laid off during a global pandemic. The CSU is only functioning because of these essential workers, but Chancellor Castro recently stated that these layoffs are, I quote, difficult but necessary decisions. This additional funding makes it even more clear that layoffs are unnecessary and harmful. Your workers are not expendable. Rescind the layoffs and stop austerity at the CSUs.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Claire Lopez. Claire, you can begin your comments.
Hi, thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Claire Lopez. I attend CSU San Luis Obispo, and I am a member of Students for Quality Education. Chancellor Castro took over a high leadership role during a time of financial crisis, food insecurity, housing, and mass evictions. Castro is supposed to represent the CSU and its student body, but the fact that the Board of Trustees approved a $625,000 base salary and a $150,000 increase from the previous chancellor is proof that he has no idea what students are going through. This is a big equity, especially when the medium source that he originally came from, Fresno, only represents $25,000. So over a $600,000 increase is outrageous. And then the CSU is threatening furloughs and pay cuts for the 2021-2022 academic year. His car and housing allowance, $107,000 alone, is more than the U.S. median household income, $78,000. Hundreds of CSU's faculty, staff, and students are losing jobs, work, and access to health care while he gets that compensation package. We call on Castro to reject the raise he's getting over white salary to help save jobs and students retention programs. Another thing, too,
Thank you, Claire. If you can please wrap up your comments.
Yes, no tuition, defund PD, and defund from admin and Castro.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Melis Bonifacio Jerez. Melis, you have been unmuted and can begin.
Good morning. My name is Melis Bonifacio Jerez. I attend CSU Chico, and I'm a member of Students for Quality Education. The California State Legislature passed AB 1460, making ethnic studies classes a grad requirement for all incoming CSU students starting the 2024-2025 academic year. This was a win celebrated by many students and faculty of color. Ethnic studies makes us feel seen and heard, especially now, especially during these times. The Chancellor's office tried to pass their own watered-down, AKA whitewashed, version of ethnic studies that went against what the Chancellor's Task Force on Ethnic Studies wanted, what ethnic studies professors in the CSU recommended too. Despite the fact that AB 1460 is now law, the CSU has yet to meet the requirement of implementing AB 1460 into their curriculums. We are here to remind the Chancellor's office that ethnic studies as a grad requirement isn't a suggestion, it is a mandate. It is law. Your students and faculty are watching, and we are not amused. I yield my time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Citlali Alejo Firmin. You have been unmuted and you can begin.
Thank you. Good morning. Hello, everyone. My name is Citlali from Cal State East Bay, and I am a member of Students for Quality Education. At Cal State East Bay, the ratio from counselor to student is 1 mental health counselor to every 2,500 students. We don't have any mental health counselors that reflect upon the Cal State East Bay students, which are Black, Brown, and Indigenous identities. A professor at Cal State East Bay conducted a campus-wide survey for students regarding their access to mental health counselors and resources. And the research results were that Black and Brown students are incredibly disproportionately impacted to receiving those services. The lack of counselors across all CSUs has become a brutal issue for all students, especially now under an intense pandemic. It has been found that only 4 campuses have met the requirement of only 1,500 students to 1 counselor ratio. And if you ask me, that still sounds like way too much. Leaving students without any psychological help, and counselors are left overworked. Students should have access to the mental health resources, considering the fact that we are going through an incredible, intense pandemic for the last 10 months, almost a year. Instead of appointing 4 to 5 million budgets to police who have minimal.
Thank you, Citlali. If you can please wrap up your comments.
Yes, we demand caps and not caps because our call to defund the police does not just focus on demilitarizing the police. It is a call to fund the resources most essential to student survival. Students shouldn't have to wait even if it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tanya Acosta. Tanya, if you can accept the unmute request and please begin your comments.
Good morning. My name is Tanya Acosta. I attend the CSU Fresno, and I'm a member of Students for Quality Education. Chancellor Castro took over a high leadership role during a time of financial crisis, food insecurity, and housing and mass evictions. Castro is supposed to represent the CSU and its student body, but the fact that the Board of Trustees approved a $625,000 base salary, a $150,000 increase from the previous Chancellor White, is proof that he has no idea what students are going through. How is this increase justified in the middle of a pandemic where students are literally going hungry and struggling to keep a roof over their heads? The CSU is still threatening furloughs and pay cuts for the 2021-2022 academic year. His annual car and housing allowance, $107,000 alone, is more than the U.S. median household income of $78,000. Hundreds of CSU faculty, staff, and students are literally losing their jobs, work, and access to healthcare while he gets home that compensation package. We call on Castro to reject the raise he's getting over White's salary to help save jobs and student retention programs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Beth Contreras. Beth, you have been unmuted and you can begin.
Good morning. My name is Beth Contreras, and I am a member of California State University, Fresno, and I'm a member of Students for Quality Education. Again, Chancellor Castro took over a high leadership role during a time of a financial crisis, food insecurity, housing, and mass evictions. Castro is supposed to represent the CSU and its student body, but the fact that the Board of Trustees approved a $625,000 base salary, a $150,000 increase from the previous year, families and faculty are going through. The CSU is threatening furloughs and pay cuts for the 2021-2022 academic year. His annual car and housing allowance is $107,000 alone, and it's more than the U.S. median household income, which is $78,000, which is not representative of any of the students at Fresno State University, let alone the entire CSU system. Hundreds of the CSU faculty, staff, and students are losing jobs, work, and access to healthcare while he gets that compensation package. We all call on Castro to reject the raise he's getting over White's salary to help.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Carmen Martinez. Carmen, if you can please accept the unmute request and begin your comments.
Hello, good morning. My name is Carmen Martinez. I attend Sacramento State and I am a member of SQE. The lack of mental health counselors across all CSUs is an issue that we have advocated for years, yet we've been ignored time and time again. Students require, and we should not wait to help students until it's too late. The recommended counselor to student ratio should be 1,500 students per 1 counselor. The majority of CSUs do not satisfy this requirement and usually expect less than 20 counselors to be of help to more than 40,000 students. In fact, it has only been found that only 4 of the CSU campuses meet the standard ratio of students per counselor. I have personally experienced the difficulty waiting months to see a counselor on campus while I was in crisis, and this is a very dangerous experience that students should not endure. Not only are counselors overworked, but this means students are oftentimes left without psychological support for months on end due to the lack of counselors on campus. With students struggling to survive in a pandemic and forced to succeed in a virtual learning environment, mental health should be at the forefront of supporting students during this time. We demand caps, not cops, because it is highly inappropriate to appoint $4 to $5 million budgets to police salaries while students continue to go without essential resources for success and survival. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Our next speaker is Yahira Victorino. Yahira, if you can please accept the unmute request and begin your comments.
Hello, my name is Yahira and I attend Sacramento State University. I am also a member of SQE. Students across the state continue to struggle physically, emotionally, and financially, while UPD officers continue to have salaries above that of full-time faculty and entire student resource centers. Officers have become glorified meter maids and serve no role in protecting students. They don't prevent crimes, patrol nothing but empty campuses, and are militarized to an absurd degree. Students' mental health, housing, accessibility to educational resources, and accessibility to and financial distress are just a few of the problems that have been overlooked and disregarded by this board and the CSU as a whole. We demand that the egregious amount of money given to UPD be redistributed in forms of fee reimbursement, loan forgiveness, and resource centers and mental health counseling for students in underrepresented groups. Defund UPD as the backbone of the entire system. Students deserve the right to a higher education free of systematic injustices that inhibit their learning and diminish their chance of a brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you, Yahira. Our next speaker is Nia Hall. Nia, you can begin your comments.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Nia Hall, and I attend San Francisco State University. I'm an executive board member of the First Black Student Union and a graduate of the First College of Ethnic Studies, and I am here representing the Students for Quality Education. Students across the state continue to struggle physically, emotionally, and financially, while University Police Department officers continue to have salaries above that of full-time faculty and entire student resource centers. Officers, especially at San Francisco State, have become glorified meter maids and serve no role in protecting students. They don't prevent crime, patrol nothing but empty campuses, and are militarized to an absurd degree. Student mental health, housing, accessibility to educational resources, and financial distress are just a few of the problems that have been overlooked and disregarded by this board and the California State University as a whole. We demand that the egregious amount of money being given to UPD be redistributed in the forms of fee reimbursements, loan forgiveness, resource centers, and mental health counseling for students in underrepresented groups. As the backbone of this entire system, students deserve the right to a higher education free of systemic injustices that inhibit their learning and diminish their chance at a brighter future. Thank you so much, and I yield my time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Olivia Gerber. Olivia, if you can please unmute and then begin your comments.
Good morning. My name is Olivia Gerber, and I attend San Jose State University, and I'm a member of Students for Quality Education. The lack of mental health counselors across all CSUs is an issue we have advocated for years and have been ignored time and time again. Students require care, not punishment, and we should not wait to help students until it is too late. The recommended counselor to student ratio should be 1,500 students per one counselor. Majority of CSUs do not satisfy this requirement and usually expect less than 20 counselors to be of help to more than 40,000 students. In fact, it has been found only 4 of the CSU campuses meet this standard ratio of students per counselor. Instead of appointing $4 to $5 million budgets to police who have minimal use, especially when no one is on campus, appoint that budget towards psychologists, therapists, psychiatrists who actually serve and benefit students. With students struggling to survive in a pandemic and forced to succeed in a virtual learning environment, mental health should be at the forefront of supporting students during this time. We demand caps, not cops. because our call to defund the police doesn't just focus on demilitarizing the police. It's a call to fund the resources most essential to students' survival. Thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you, Olivia. Next speaker, Julian Johnson Milan, if you can please unmute and start your comments.
Hello, my name is Julian Johnson Milan, and I attend CSU Stanislaus, and I represent SQE. Students across the state continue to struggle physically, emotionally, and financially, while UPD officers continue to have salaries above that of full-time faculty and entire student resource centers. Officers have become glorified meter maids and serve no role in protecting students. They don't prevent crimes, patrol nothing but empty campuses, and are militarized to an absurd degree. Student mental health, housing, accessibility to educational resources, and financial distress are just a few of the problems that have been overlooked and disregarded by this board and the CSU as a whole. We demand that the egregious amount of money being given to UPD be redistributed in the forms of fee reimbursement, loan forgiveness, resource centers, and mental health counseling for students in underrepresented groups. As the backbone of this entire system, students deserve the right to a higher education free from systemic injustices that inhibit their learning and diminish their chance at a brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Kyle Campbell. Kyle, if you can please unmute and begin your comments.
Hi, good evening or good morning. My name is Kyle Campbell. I'm from CSUB. I wanted to speak on access overall for students. Over the past semester, we've been charged excessive amounts for fines and fees on the campuses, to which access to laptops and hotspots has not been properly addressed. And going forward this semester, we find that if over $300 in fees is going to be levied against us, that there needs to be some type of reciprocation towards the student development and not necessarily keeping a campus clean that isn't being used. Yeah, I just wanted to speak on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Our next speaker is Daniela Hernandez. Daniela, you can begin.
Good morning. My name is Daniela. I attend CSUF and I am a member of Students for Quality Education. I came to speak about the lack of mental health counselors across all CSUs and how it is an issue that we have advocated for years and have been ignored time and time again. The recommended counselor to student ratio should be 1,500 students per one counselor, and the majority of the CSUs do not satisfy this requirement and usually expect less than 20 counselors to be a help to more than 40,000 students. In fact, it has been found that only 4 out of the 23 CSU campuses meet this standard ratio of students per counselor. Not only are counselors overworked, but this means students are oftentimes left without psychological support. Instead of appointing $4 to $5 million budgets to police who have minimal use, especially when no one's on campus, appoint that budget towards psychologists, therapists, psychiatrists who actually serve and benefit your students. We demand caps, not cops, because our call to defund the police doesn't just focus on demilitarizing the police. It is a call to fund and focus on the resources most essential to student survival. Students should not have to wait until it is too late. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ileana Lugo. Ileana, you can begin.
Hi, my name is Ileana and I attend Cal State Fullerton. Students across the state continue to struggle physically, emotionally, and financially, while UPD officers continue to have salaries above that of full-time faculty and entire student resource centers. Officers have become glorified meter maids and serve no role in protecting students. They don't prevent crimes, patrol nothing but empty campuses, and are militarized to an absurd degree. Student mental health, housing, accessibility to education resources, and financial distress are just a few of the problems that have been overlooked and disregarded by this board and the CSU as a whole. We demand that the egregious amount of money being given to UPD be redistributed in the forms of fee reimbursement, loan forgiveness, resource centers, and mental health counseling for students in underrepresented groups. As a backbone of this entire system, students deserve the right to a higher education free of systemic injustices that inhibit their learning and diminish their chance at a brighter future. I also want to say that when we see y'all on your phones, it's upsetting because y'all are admin. Y'all get paid more than staff and faculty who give us more respect and attention and are hurting with the pay that they receive. I'm not coming at y'all for productivity in conjunction to your astonishing salary. I'm coming at you for the lack of respect paired with your outrageous salary, while faculty and lecturers are hurting financially, and y'all sit here and literally twiddle your thumbs. I yield my time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lali Payan. If you can accept the unmute request and begin your comments, please.
Hi, my name is Nayeli Payan, and I attend California State University, Los Angeles. Students across the state continue to struggle physically, emotionally, and financially, all while UPD officers continue to have salaries above full-time faculty and entire student resource centers. Officers have become glorified meter maids and serve no role in protecting students. They do not deter crimes. All they do is patrol vacant campuses while being absurdly militarized. Student mental health, housing, accessibility to educational resources, and financial distress are only a few of the issues that this board and the CSU in its entirety have ignored and neglected. We demand that the egregious amounts of money being given to UPD be redistributed in the forms of fees reimbursement, loan forgiveness, resource centers, and mental health counseling for students in underrepresented groups. As the backbone of this entire system, students deserve the right to higher education free of systematic injustices that inhibit their learning and diminish their chance at a brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Chloe Ricks. Chloe, if you can also accept the unmute request and then begin your comments, please.
Good morning. My name is Chloe Ricks. I attend CSU Long Beach, and I'm a member of Students for Quality Education. The lack of mental health counselors across all CSUs is an issue we've been advocating for years and have been ignored time and time again. The recommended counselor to student ratio is 1,500 students to one counselor. A majority of the CSUs do not satisfy this requirement and usually expect less than 20 counselors to be of help to more than 40,000 students. In fact, only 4 of the CSU campuses meet this standard ratio of students per counselor. Not only are counselors overworked, but this means students are oftentimes left without psychological support. Instead of appointing $4 to $5 million of the budget into police who have minimal use, especially when no one's on campus, appoint that budget towards psychologists, therapists, and psychiatrists who actually serve and benefit your students. We demand caps, not cops, because our call to defund the police doesn't just focus on demilitarizing the police. It is a call to fund the resources most essential to student survival. And at this time, that is the most important thing to be doing right now, not fucking funding the cops. Thank you.
Our next speaker, America Lopez. America, you're unmuted, unmuted, and you can begin.
Hi, my name is America Lopez. I attend Cal State University in Long Beach, and I'm a member of Students for Quality Education. I wanted to urge you that instead of appointing $4 to $5 million budgets to police who have minimal use, especially when no one is on campus, appoint that budget towards psychologists, therapists, and psychiatrists who actually serve and benefit your students. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kayla Moore-Jones. Kayla, you have been unmuted and you can begin your comments.
Good morning. My name is Kayla Moore-Jones. I attend CSU Northridge, and I'm a member of Students for Quality Education. Time and time again, we students have come to speak during public comment, pouring our hearts out, speaking about the issues and concerns we have on our respective campuses, only to be interjected, rudely cut off during comment, or even ignored by our own trustees who would rather sit on their phones. These trustees make so much more money while the average CSU lecturer makes less than they do, while the average student struggles to make ends meet on top of going to school during a pandemic. And they're not even doing their jobs. They're on their phones. One UPD sergeant can make more than the entire budget of a student success program. We cannot go on with business as usual. There needs to be a change. Trustees must take unconscious bias training and start implementing anti-racist teachings into their work. Trustees must take a pay cut. The burden shouldn't always have to fall on students and faculty who get our programs and classes cut to offset their costs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ruben Ramos. Ruben, you're unmuted and you can begin your comments.
Good morning. My name is Ruben Ramos. I attend CSU Northridge and I am a member of SQE, Students for Quality Education. You should be concerned and ashamed that you are doing the bare minimum for the countless students that continue to face food and housing insecurity. The ongoing issue of housing insecurity during the pandemic will only exacerbate the disproportionate number of homeless students in California who are 70% Latino and 9% Black. You say that all 23 CSU campuses offer on-campus emergency housing, vouchers for off-campus housing, food pantries, and food distribution programs. Yet, to so many students, this either does not exist or is inaccessible. Not only have food banks and food pantries become inaccessible to students, a lack of access to the internet still exists. Campuses that require students to pick up hotspots, computers, or iPads increase exposure to COVID and are inconsiderate to those who cannot afford any mode of transportation. We need more equitable changes that urgently address students. I'm gonna say it again. We need more equitable changes that urgently address students' needs with resources that are all accessible to all students. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Juliana Gutierrez. Juliana, you are unmuted and you can begin.
Good morning. My name is Juliana Gutierrez. I attend CSU San Marcos, and I am a member of Students for Quality Education. The lack of mental health counselors across all CSUs is an issue we have advocated for years and have been ignored time and time again. The recommended counselor-to-student ratio should be 1,500 students per one counselor. Majority of CSUs do not satisfy this requirement and usually expect less than 20 counselors to be of help for more than 40,000 students. In fact, it has only been found that 4 CSU's campuses meet the standard ratio of students per counselor. And we need counselors that look like us. We need more LGBTQ counselors. We need more BIPOC counselors. Not only are the counselors overworked, but this means that students are oftentimes are left without any psychological support. Instead of appointing $4 to $5 million in budgets to police who have minimal use, especially when no one comes to campus right now, appoint that budget towards psychologists, therapists, and psychiatrists who actually serve and benefit your students. We demand caps, not cops, because our call to defund police doesn't just focus on demilitarizing the police. It's a call to fund the resources most essential to student survival. Students shouldn't have to wait till it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Faith Garcia. Faith, if you can please unmute and begin your comments.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Faith. Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Faith Garcia. I attend CSU San Marcos, and I am a member of Students for Quality Education. Chancellor Castro took over a high leadership role during a time of financial crisis, food insecurity, housing, and mass evictions. Castro is supposed to represent the CSU and its student body, but the fact that the Board of Trustees approved a $625,000 base salary, a $150,000 increase from the previous chancellor is proof that he has no idea what the students are going through. Castro and the Board of Trustees should be concerned and ashamed for what you are doing. You are doing nothing for the countless students that continue to try to make ends meet to survive with no resources while you all sit there on your phones and continue to ignore our demands. We call on Castro to reject the raise he is getting over white salary to help save jobs and student retention programs. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sunny Thomas. Sunny, if you can please accept the unmute request and then begin your comments. Sunny Thomas, if you're on and you can accept the unmute request and begin your comments. Okay, we'll go on to Tessie Reese. Tessie, if you can please unmute your audio and begin your comments, please.
Thank you. You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Since we are only given 1 minute to speak, which is very frustrating for all of us, I'm sure, I am going to start my 2021 first 1-minute speech to Chancellor Castro. You are the new sheriff on the team, and I look forward to hopefully having a long relationship with you as well as the trustees, new trustees, and the more senior trustees who have been around for a while. I have to say, it is very frustrating, at least for me, and I'm sure for others. I'm not alone in my frustration that we are limited to 1 minute. How can we give our heartfelt speeches and our concerns when we are limited to 1 minute? So as the new sheriff on the block, I'm requesting that you relook at this and you open up again to be a reasonable chancellor, to start directing the CSU, to start opening up the time slots for us to speak. We used to be able to speak at the different committees, and now we are pushed into one time, 1 minute for the 2 days, and we get 1 day to speak. There's so many things I would like to say, but I don't have the time to say it, and I know I can put it in a speech and write it and send it off to you all, and hopefully you would all read it. But for 2021, January 1st speech, to I'm sure be very many from me, I am asking you, Chancellor Castro, to take this heartfelt request to start looking at giving us the opportunity to give more than 1 minute as we spend our time listening to you all for 2 days doing the important work of the CSU. So I yield my time and thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Don Moreno. Don, you have been unmuted and you can begin.
Good morning, Michelle, Chancellor Castro, Board of Trustees and guests. I'm representing CSU EU under Unit 5 Vice Chair. Hello, my name is Don Moreno and I work in Unit 5 at CSU East Bay. The world has been dealing with the COVID-19 crisis for a year now. And that year, we have witnessed how people, governments, and businesses have made massive changes in how things are done. We've adapted to challenges because we had to. Necessity made what was inconceivable just a year ago possible. I would like to think if we took that model and applied it to collective bargaining, we can achieve real fundamental change. Let's look at equity, fairness, and labor justice, not as things we would like, but as things we need. Look at how many of my brothers and sisters in Unit 5 earn wages that keep their families below poverty line. This happens because we allow it to happen. And it will only change if we start with the assumption that that outcome is unacceptable and we work together to avoid it. And I would also like to welcome our new campus president, Dr. Kathleen Sandine, to East Bay. And I would also wish all of you a blessed new year. And Michelle, thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you, Don, and thank you very much. Our next speaker is Tony Spraggins. Tony, you are unmuted and you can begin your comments.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Marching orders is described as an authoritative orders or instructions, especially to set out on. Since the pandemic began, we have seen a lot of changes. Some of those changes, it seems, were to preserve the top tier, those who give the marching orders, while the bottom staff just finds a way. We were told by those soldiers with marching orders not to do anything more than what was already being done, saying we can't go back to our superiors with what you're asking for in the form of more relief, as if the pandemic is over. Newsflash, it's not. We were told that the CSU has been the most generous employer over and above any other. I guess being laid off, losing your health benefits, maybe a life in the face of the world's worst health crisis is generous. Thanks for nothing. I just heard this morning 8 million people since June, when layoffs began, have fallen into poverty. Thanks again. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Katie Murphy. Katie, you can begin.
Hello, I'm Katie Murphy, an alum and staff member at San Francisco State. In the aftermath of layoffs, my campus, like many others across the system, is scrambling how to figure out how to get the same amount of work accomplished with fewer staff, how to squeeze blood from a stone. To manage staff workloads, I recommend that the CSU unilaterally, once and for all, end the expectation and the practice of staff doing faculty work. Within academic units, robust proactive measures are needed to ensure that faculty no longer push their work onto staff. It is not enough for the CSU to rely on staff to report faculty pressuring them to make photocopies, manage class rosters, and the like. The problem is too widespread and the fear of retaliation too real. If staff, and indeed the CSU, are to survive, we need the system to take decisive action to end this all too common practice. No more photocopies, no more favors. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ken Montero. Ken, you have been unmuted and you may begin.
Thank you, Ms. Kiss. Good morning. I bring greetings to the Board of Trustees and a warm welcome to Chancellor Castro in his new and historic role as the first person of color to lead the nation's most prominent public higher education system. I'm Kenneth Montero, chair of the CSU Council on Ethnic Studies. I offer several communications from the council. First, our over 600 members are working to ensure that the CSU successfully implements Weber Bill AB 1460, preparing our students to be the best leaders for a multi-ethnic and more equitable 21st century. Second, we're already connecting with Chancellor Castro to maximize our contribution to advancing the CSU priorities. Third, and finally, we will return to the board to ask that you rescind the unnecessary and obstructionist Title V changes opposed by the CSU CES, CFA, ASCU, 18 campus senates, and a consortium of colleagues across disciplines. Even a report by EVC Blanchard found no significant support from any campus for those changes that overburden faculty, cost more, and worse, we've been alerted that this oppositional relationship has been used as an excuse to marginalize ethnic studies faculty in the implementation process and withhold necessary resources. What can be added by a stroke of the pen can be as easily erased. So therefore, we in the ethnic studies faculty will work with Chancellor Castro to advance ethnic studies, and in so doing advance the California State University system as we have done for 50 years. We look forward to the historic day, hopefully in the near future, when our work and our commitment in support of the advancement of the CSU finally meets a reciprocal, welcoming, and supportive response from the Board of Trustees. So we remain optimistic for a world that needs ethnic studies more than it ever did. We'll return soon to request that you rescind those Title V changes. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker is Sasha Perez. Sasha, you're unmuted and you can begin.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairwoman Campbell, Board of Trustees, and Chancellor Castro. My name is Sasha Perez, and I'm the Public Affairs Manager for the Campaign for College Opportunity. Almost a year ago today, the CSU Board of Trustees voted to postpone a quantitative reasoning requirement until 2022. The Campaign for College Opportunity remains concerned that the new requirement would undermine CSU's progress in increasing access to the system for underserved students, especially low-income students of color. That is why we have joined 24 community-based educational equity and civil rights organizations in sharing concerns regarding the quantitative reasoning requirement. We believe that it is essential that the research study by MRDC adequately address key equity-focused research questions and that the process remains transparent to the steering committee and school districts across the state. In order to achieve the CSU must engage in a genuine research process to assess disparate impact, as was the intent of the CSU Board of Trustees, and as we've continuously raised, to best understand how this change will impact the universe of students who could be potentially eligible for the CSU. We also ask that the CSU be clear in communicating that the addition of a fourth year of quantitative reasoning to CSU eligibility requirements is a proposal and is still up for a vote by the CSU trustees. Lastly, the CSU must be more transparent about how the evaluation of this proposal is moving forward, both with the official CSU quantitative steering committee, as well as stakeholders like ourselves. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rich McGee. Rich, if you can please accept the unmute request and begin your comments.
Good morning and welcome, Chancellor Castro. I'm Rich McGee, Chair of CSUU Bargaining Unit 9. This month, the CSU laid off over 180 permanent staff employees statewide. How can they possibly cite lack of funds as a justification for such layoffs when the state of California recently announced an $11 billion budget surplus? Chancellor Castro, CSUEU calls upon you to direct this board to use the state-funded increase to your baseline budget and return those employees who recently lost their jobs within the CSU to full-time employment. Imagine facing unemployment during this COVID-19 pandemic. Would you like the names and sad stories of over 180 individuals you forced into this heartbreaking position? Those people would be happy to tell you today exactly what the sudden unemployment feels like, but they can't be here as they're out looking for a job to feed their families. Thank you.
Drew, you can go ahead and begin.
Good morning. My name is Drew Scott, and I'm the Skilled Trades Director for Teamsters 2010. With a state budget proposal with a 3% base increase plus $175 million in deferred maintenance funding, and CSU in line to receive more than $800 million in additional stimulus funding, we would ask the campuses to stop talk of layoffs. We've heard repeatedly that layoffs and other cuts are a last resort necessitated by the impact of the pandemic. Between the CSU's $1.7 billion in reserves and the hundreds of millions of dollars in additional funding it will soon receive, CSU can make another choice. Our work has allowed you to literally keep the lights on. The least you can do is keep our members employed doing what they do best. We call on you to rescind the layoffs and put our members to work addressing deferred maintenance and other issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cal Mason. Cal, you have been unmuted and you may begin.
Thank you, Michelle. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Welcome, Chancellor Castro, and good morning, everyone. My name is Cal Mason, and I'm recently retired from CSU after 25 years as an electrician at San Diego State. I am proud of my work serving the CSU campus, the students, and the public. I wish I could say I was proud of the way CSU treats its dedicated employees, but unfortunately, I cannot. Let's all be clear that there are longstanding issues with how CSU deals with its workers. Let's examine the CSU's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. At the start of the pandemic, skilled trades members were told we were essential and directed to continue working despite the risk to ourselves and our families. In just months, those same essential workers started receiving pink slips from the campuses. Essential workers suddenly became disposable while campuses sat on accessible reserves that could have been used to prevent this hardship. It's not too late for the CSU to rededicate itself to the workers who have given so much. Unit 6 Teamsters ask you, the Board of Trustees, to please rescind the layoffs and treat employees as valued team members of the CSU community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Kimberly Fuentes. Kimberly, you may begin.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, Chancellor and Board of Trustees. My name is Kimberly Fuentes, and I'm calling on behalf of the California League of United Latin American Citizens. The CSU needs to engage in genuine and transparent research to address our 2-year-long concern in implementing the quantitative reasoning proposal. We need to know the disparate impact on communities of color, including our Latinx community. It is a privilege to be designated a Hispanic serving institution. This proposal stands in stark contrast to that designation. The most recent statewide eligibility study indicates a gap of almost 8 percentage points between white and Latino students, and a gap of almost 10 percentage points between white and African American students. An analysis focusing only on current attendance patterns would suggest that these equity gaps are somehow acceptable and that CSU isn't seeking to close them. We also need to emphasize that the CSU Board of Trustees must be clear that the addition of 4th-year quantitative reasoning proposal is a proposal and is still up for a vote by the CSU trustees. We ask for greater transparency in evaluating this proposal as this stands to impact our Latinos communities. We must seek proposals towards equity. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Charles Toombs. Charles, you are unmuted and you may begin.
Good morning, Chancellor Castro and BLT. I'm Charles Toombs, CFA President and Professor at SDSU. The CSU announced on December 9th in an LA Times article, but not directly to faculty, students, and staff, that we would return to on-campus instruction for fall 2021. CFA immediately demanded a meet and confer on repopulating our campuses on health and safety and the safety of our campus communities. CFA met with the CSU's labor relations team on January 14th and 15th. They came with nothing. We let management know that the voices of our members must be heard for any repopulation plan statewide or at the campus level. CFA presented a detailed list of topics that must be addressed. While I do not have the time to present all of these topics, availability of vaccines, privacy issues, options for continued remote instructions, protocols for safety, protocols for sanitation, mental health needs, and state, local, and national public health guides are among the topics. Chancellor Castro, faculty, students, and staff are expecting bold leadership from you on campus repopulation. Faculty are frustrated, worried, and concerned about the working conditions and the learning conditions for students. When we meet again with the CSU Labor Relations team, we implore you to empower them to have topics to present to us. We all must get repopulation right. There is too much at stake not to get it right. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kevin Weir. Kevin, you may begin.
Good morning. I'm Kevin Weir, CFA Vice President and Chair of Bargaining. We are now 7 months into our one-year contract extension. Having met with the management team a number of times to discuss an array of issues, we have yet to see any real progress. When we speak with the management team, it is often the case that they are underinformed. In fact, sometimes we are the ones who alert them to a developing situation. Bargaining is always a negotiated process, a two-step between willing partners. But being willing to meet and discuss is very different than being empowered to make decisions and move towards completing a collective bargaining agreement. This takes leadership on the part of the senior managers of the CSU, leadership that is sorely lacking. The faculty have been waiting to see what sort of leadership will come from the new chancellor. It has been a month, and we are still waiting. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Megan O'Donnell. Megan, you may begin.
Good morning. I'm Megan O'Donnell, Associate Vice President of Lecturers for CFA. On the CSU's website, speaking on COVID, there is a quote from our former chancellor who said, the CSU, quote, doesn't merely survive challenges, we conquer them. But the CSU hasn't conquered this challenge. Faculty are exhausted. The only reason the CSU remains resilient during the COVID crisis is because faculty and staff have carried you on their backs for almost a year. All while thousands of them homeschool, feed babies, pump, share their computer with their own kids because they need to attend school as well, while simultaneously teaching the students of the CSU. The lack of concern for the crisis facing faculty with children, particularly women who are disproportionately the ones expected to work full-time while being full-time caregivers, makes a mockery of a university system that claims to care about equity and inclusion. You have just abandoned faculty at a time when many are drowning. Where is our new chancellor? We need him to care. We need you and the CSU to care. We need COVID leave for our faculty now. It is too late. We are desperate. We need leadership.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle Soto-Pena. Michelle, if you can please accept the unmute request and begin your comments.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Soto-Pena, and I'm Assistant Professor of Liberal Studies at CSU Stanislaus. I'm calling on Chancellor Castro and the board to extend CPAL leave. Because of the pandemic, my childcare became obsolete. I was required to switch instructional modalities and increase my work productivity to support my students through this tumultuous time. My partner is an essential worker and required to work off-site My daily routine consists of juggling work and home responsibilities as a sole childcare provider from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and then dedicate my evenings to catching up on work from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. or later. This pace of life is not only unsustainable, but detrimental to my ability to provide a quality education for my students. And now I can't help but feel overwhelmed with more anxiety. I've spent the past couple of months looking for childcare to no avail. I live in Turlock, and there are only 3 facilities licensed to work with young children, including at Stan State, but that's currently closed. My story is not unique and is happening to staff and faculty system-wide. CPAL leave alleviated these concerns for us in the fall, and I hope that you extend it into the spring. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Our next speaker is Chris Cox. Chris, you may begin.
Hi, my name is Chris Cox, and I'm a lecturer faculty member at SJSU, and I'm a CFA board member. In the past year, our society's had a now former president and other national leaders using racial scapegoating to lay blame for COVID-19. We've seen visceral examples of police violence in Black communities, deep inequalities in healthcare access during a global pandemic, and an attempted insurrection at our nation's capital. The need to address structural racism at all levels is laid clear, and this is what ethnic studies disciplines help us to do. Ethnic studies was created in the CSU as a result of a struggle for racial justice and should be seen as a point of pride for our system. However, over the years, CSU management has failed to invest sufficient resources for ethnic studies departments and programs. And now the CSU management has failed to engage in appropriate collaboration with faculty over the implementation of AB 1460. With the leadership of Chancellor Castro, we now have the opportunity to correct this error by rescinding the changes made to Title V this fall. I implore you to follow the recommendations of the Council for Ethnic Studies, the California Faculty Association, the Academic Senate of the CSU, as well as many other faculty and interest groups to create a truly collaborative process for implementing AB 1460 as intended. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Daryl Engen. Daryl, you can begin.
Good morning. My name is Daryl Ty Engen. I'm a faculty member in the History Department at Cal State San Marcos and also CFA chapter president there, as well as CFA AVP for President South. I'd like to request that the Board of Trustees undertake anti-racism and bias training. Perhaps you have already done this collectively or individually. However, I'm sorry to say that I see no evidence of it. I'd like to think that as individuals, you are committed to anti-racism and practice it on an interpersonal basis. But as an institution, the CSU Board of Trustees fails to address racism and bias in a structural way. Among the many examples we've heard today, your failure to support AB 1460, the ethnic studies requirement, and then to undermine it with an implementation plan involving a Title V change that is opposed by every faculty organization, including the Ethnic Studies Council, Academic Senate, and CFA, shows that you do not understand the need for structural as opposed to simply interpersonal change. CFA is happy to provide you with anti-racism and bias training, and we have created workshops that address the structural changes needed to move forward on these issues. Please accept our offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, our next speaker is Susan Green. Susan, you may begin.
Good morning, Susan Green, Chico State, California Faculty Association Treasurer. The people have disappeared in the People's University. I've been coming to the CSU Board of Trustees for 20 years, and it is very clear this board and hired leaders have less interest in hearing from the public during public comments than ever. 1 minute for each speaker before the board even conducts its business during a once-in-a-century pandemic and national and racial and democratic crisis is cynical and appalling. The Academic Senate of the CSU feels similarly shut out, as evidenced by the resolution they will present tomorrow. Chancellor Castro, unlike some of the well-heeled members of this board, you are a man of humble origins who should understand the need to hear the voices of our largely BIPOC, first-gen students, their families, and your employees, now more than ever. We want to help you to be a compassionate leader for the times. Expand and improve the accessibility of the public comment sections of this meeting now. You heard it from Tessie Reese from CSUEU, and now you're hearing it from me and CFA. Expediency is no replacement for democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Stephen Filling. Stephen, you may begin.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning. Stephen Felling, Political Action Chair for the California Faculty Association and a professor of accounting at Stanislaus State. CFA believes the governor's proposed budget is a good starting point. It's up to us, trustees, administration, students, CFA, and others, to make a compelling case for the additional resources our system needs. It is also up to us to make wise decisions with the resources we receive. For instance, the governor's proposal includes $15 million for student mental health and technology needs. It is clear from the data and the lived experiences of our faculty that the most effective mechanism for increasing the availability of quality student mental health services is to engage more full-time tenure-track counseling faculty. We urge you to direct CSU administration to act on that reality. While a good start, the governor's proposal is not sufficient to effectively address the many challenges we face. CFA asks that the CSU join us in advocating for the additional resources that would enable us to more fully meet those needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Our next speaker is Naomi Castro. Naomi, you have been unmuted and you can begin your comments.
Thank you. Good morning, trustees and Chancellor Castro. I'm Dr. Naomi Castro, no relation. I'm a senior director at the Career Ladders Project, a nonprofit who promotes equity-minded community college redesign. And one of my areas of expertise is dual enrollment and student transition from high school to college. In regards to the proposed changes in admission requirements, adding a 4th year of quantitative reasoning, I echo the concerns of my colleagues this morning from the Campaign for College Opportunity and LULAC, and I'm looking forward to the MDRC study. But I do urge that a fundamental question be included in this study, and that is, are incoming students underprepared for college-level math? The recent CSU reforms in their remedial math policy have seen really significant gains in completion rates, which may suggest that students actually are prepared and that this was a structural issue as opposed to one of student preparedness. If students are prepared, then the proposed requirement is just another hoop to jump through, another barrier to entry that will exacerbate inequalities in college admissions in California. And additionally, I urge transparency. The QR steering committee could do this by providing updates to the community, to the advocacy groups, and by adding more students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Vanessa Moreno. Vanessa, you're unmuted and you can begin.
Good morning. My name is Vanessa Moreno. I'm a program coordinator with the Council of Mexican Federations in North America, also known as COFEM, here at our Coachella Valley office. I'm here to express my concern about the CSU's proposed change to increase admissions requirements. Our students, especially our low-income students and students of color in rural regions like the Eastern Coachella Valley, are being heavily impacted and are struggling with school as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic for many reasons. The pandemic has worsened the higher education equity gap. The long-term effects of the pandemic will be very much present for years to come. The CSU needs to focus on closing those gaps and ensure all students receive equitable access to resources and support. The quantitative reasoning admissions proposal plan needs to be reconsidered, or at least be more transparent about how the evaluation of this proposal is moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Manny Rodriguez. Manny, you can begin.
Good morning, Board of Trustee members. My name is Manny Rodriguez on behalf of the Education Trust West, here to speak on the work being done by the CSU Quantitative Reasoning Steering Committee. As you all know, the intent of your vote back in January 2020 was to further understand how this change will impact all high school students who are potentially eligible for the CSU before making the final decision on Title V changes. Unfortunately, ETW, along with 20+ partners, continue to have questions and concerns. For example, what are the equity-focused research questions and variables being considered by the MRDC research study? When will trustees, steering committee members, and advocates be briefed about the research process? Lastly, we need accurate communication with schools and districts so that they understand that an official decision has not yet been made to change eligibility requirements. We ask that you all push alongside us for this additional transparency so that low-income students and students of color know that their future isn't being limited due to their zip code. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Joshua Mendoza. Joshua, if you can please accept the unmute request and begin your comments.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Joshua Mendoza, a student at California State University in support of USAS. I'm here to stand in solidarity with the lowest paid workers that are being laid off across the CSU. Governor Newsom has recently released his state budget proposal for the fiscal year of 21-22. But this is the first step in the budget process and things can change. The proposal includes an increase in CSU's funding to provide a 3% base increase and a total of $200 million in ongoing funding and $225 million in one-time funding. With that state's budget, it is likely that CSU will keep or even receive greater increases when the budget is finalized. Together with the money being received from the stimulus bill and the CSU reserves, there's no justification for the layoffs at the CSUs. Rescind the layoffs, stop the austerity. Thank you, and I yield my time.
Thank you, and thank you to all of our speakers today for your patience and for your comments. Chair Kimbell, that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you again to all the speakers, your comments, and also for your continued flexibility with our revised public comment.
Brief comment.
Okay.
I hope the public is still listening, and especially the students. It is really not helpful if you repeat the same message over and over again. It does not really make your argument stronger. It also shuts out other speakers because our time is limited, and the more is repeated, the fewer diverse perspectives can we listen to. What is worse, it makes it harder for the board to contemplate on how to improve the communications between the public and the university stakeholders with the board. You have heard from union leaders, Susan Green and also Tessie Reese, that they really wish for more input to the board. And also last week, the statewide academic senate has passed a resolution that calls for increased communication with the board. But these repetitions really undermine the effort to create better and more avenues for more effective communication. So thank you, and I hope you take this to heart.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Sebelius. At this time,